You're all set, Kate.
Hello and welcome to DSLBD's weekly Lunch and Learn series. Every Wednesday at noon, DSLBD's Inno.ED division works with parts of our agency, parts of our team, and other small business ecosystem providers to bring information to DC small businesses. Today, we're going to cover a packed session with a number of different topics about an annual checkup. It is the top of the year, and it's a good time for businesses to do an assessment of a lot of important bookkeeping and other items to make sure that they are ready to close out last year and start next year. Since we have a ton of information, we're going to be moving pretty quickly. If you are joining us live today and have questions, please feel free to put those questions in the chat. If you are watching this later, we're going to have information that we'll be sharing about how you follow up with us so that we can help you get support if you have questions. Let's cover our agenda for today very briefly. We're going to spend a lot of time on some of the financial housekeeping things that you should be thinking about or doing as you close out last year and move into this year. We're going to do some regulatory reminders. We won't be able to cover everything in regulation, but we're going to cover some of the really big ones in areas where we know that businesses face challenges. We're going to have a few reflections on thinking about refurbishing your marketing plan. A reminder about how and where to connect with some of the many business development supports that are free across the district, and also have a little bit of time for thinking about what are the partnerships that you have in your business, how do you refresh those, and how do you work on goal setting for your business. So my name is Kate Marand. I am the program manager for DSLBD's Innovation and Equitable Development team. It is a fantastic team. We have the names of the other team members here. Several of them are on the line. Camille Nixon is our project and capital access manager who helps support the DC Kiva Hub, runs our Money Monday series, and does a lot to help support access to capital, as well as the DC Business Toolkit. We also have Shannon Taylor, who is our Made in DC project manager, working with many of our home-based businesses, our makers, and doing a lot with markets, as well as support for various regulatory needs that people might have. Caroline Howe, who is not with us during the session right now, is our Aspire project manager, and she also does a lot with food systems and supporting small and micro food businesses. And I have the name wrong here, I apologize, that's actually Cynthia Golson, and Cynthia supports across all projects. You can reach out to the entire team at any time, and we'll be putting this email address into the chat several times, but Inno.ED at dc.gov, that is INNO.ED at dc.gov. Anytime you have a question, if we can answer it, we will. If we can't, we will help you try to figure out where that question can be answered across the district. But let's start thinking about this whole topic for today. So one of the things that, many small businesses have their big vision and they're moving that forward. But when you're minding your small business, you have a lot of details to keep track of, and all of them. So we're going to cover many of them today. There are many more beyond this, and depending on your business setup and depending on your industry and your market, there are going to be many more besides this. So this is a more generalized session of details that all businesses really should be looking at. And we're going to start with just a few questions for you. Hopefully you have quick and easy answers to these, and if not, we suggest that you think about them and get an answer to them. So the first one, we're going to cover a lot of things today. You might not be able to get this all done in January, but you'll see important things that you want to think about throughout the year, and you might need to schedule them in. So the question is, are you keeping a calendar for your business that is separate from your calendar? Are you keeping it electronically? Do you have an email system for it? Is it on the wall? Just where do you keep your calendar? And then think to yourself, when do you actually plan your calendar in different spaces for your business? Another one that is very important, and we know sometimes when folks are getting started, and particularly for micro businesses, file management is something that we all are always striving to do more with. There are a lot of important files for your business, whether those are key documents for how you are registered, whether those are inventories and receipts. Where do you keep your files? How are they organized? Are you keeping them organized by year so that you can go back and look at different years? And what files do you need to update this year? And so as file management is always something, there's always more files to manage. We suggest that you might want to set some goals for how you are organizing your files in 2022, because there's always more that you can do to organize on those to make it easier for you. Another topic, and this session is going to fit right into this. How do you prioritize and how do you get new information? We are in an information age, And so for many businesses, there's information that they wish they had, but there's so much of it, it's hard for them to prioritize. So a few things that you might be thinking about: do you need to reorganize the email addresses that you use when you put your email on lists to receive information? So if your inbox is getting overloaded, maybe you need multiple inboxes that are separated out. Maybe there are ways that you can be filtering your email. There should probably be a list of key and important sites that you're checking, both government sites, but also other things that are related to your industry, and a schedule in which you're checking for those updates. You might want to set yourself calendar reminders for important things that are coming up, but they're not coming up for 6 months. And those might be market schedules, those might be grant opportunities, other things that are happening. For when are you checking? Are you getting the information that you need? And we know that a lot of small businesses have been using virtual office assistants to support this. Whether or not that's something you want to do, or whether or not you want to afford that cost, that is becoming more common. But recognizing that information overload is real, thinking about how you're going to manage getting that priority information is an important piece of this overall planning that you do looking into 2022. And then there's another piece, and I'll touch on this just briefly, but we are in a difficult time for small businesses, for everyone in different ways. And it is an important time to also make sure that you're taking time for you. It is very easy in small business to give it our all. And that can be very damaging for you, for those around you. So really thinking, when do you check in with yourself? When do you see how you're doing? And, that's both, mitigating challenges, but also celebrating wins. As you look at the goals and the things that you accomplished last year, what were the wins? What were the challenges? But then also, how is your health and how is your mental health? And so we just want to make a quick mention to, make sure that you make some time for your own well-being, and so that you're thinking about that. All right, those are some top level thoughts, but now we're going to get into more nitty gritty. We're going to dive right in to some of the financial checkup that you should be doing for your small business. And there are many more things beyond what we're going to cover today. We are going to talk about working with service providers, because there's a lot, but money is the lifeblood of businesses, and having that in order and understanding how it's working and is it working for you, those are all important questions. And so getting your books in order to close out last year and start this year, and to have a clear separation between your finances from 2021 and your finances from 2022 are going to be important. Now, it's possible that your business has chosen to operate on a different, what would be known as fiscal year. And so then you would close your books at a different time. But many businesses use the calendar year as their fiscal year. And so December 31st was the end of that. And that might follow their tax year. So the very first things that you should consider doing is rerunning all of the major financial statements for your business. If you do not have major financial statements for your business, if you're not set up, then that should be a first goal. And if you had activity in 2021, then you can create these based on your 2021 data and then create projection for 2022. What is everything that I'm just saying? I'm talking about a business balance sheet. That is the document that says that everything that your company owns and owes. What is the company worth? That is a profit and loss statement that shows everything that you expended, everything that you took in, and whether or not your business was profitable. And then there's another statement, which is cash flow, which is looking at when money came in and out throughout the year. Many different businesses have different cash flow shapes, but as you analyze what happened last year, that will help you know, are there general trends when you have more or less money in the business, particularly if you have a seasonal business. So if you are using financial software, you should run those reports. If you are not using financial software, you should develop those reports. There are tools we can help you get connected with that. It's also a great place for a financial service provider to help you. Part of running those reports, though, includes thinking about, are there any loose ends in the money that you had moving last year? And so there may be invoices that you need to pay. So you may still owe things. But if it's 2021 debt, you need to consider that in your 2021 budget, even if it's a loss. And that's the same thing, ensuring that you've received all payments. And that is also very difficult. Sometimes people don't pay us on time. But if it's a 2022 payment, or 2021 payment, thinking about how that fits in your 2021 budget, again, even if it's at a loss. So let's talk about that briefly. What do you do with outstanding debt, both debt that you owe and debt that is owed to you? There are different ways that you can treat this debt as you look at how it moves from 21 to 22. Some people will count it as a loss. Some people will take it off the books and move it to the next book. This is something that you should work with your accountant or your tax professional to understand how that debt should be treated in your budget and for tax purposes. There are different ways in proper accounting to do it, so we're not going to cover all of that, but you should be asking the question, how do you treat that outstanding debt, closing out 21 and thinking about 2022 with clean books. And this is another piece that may be important and is something that we're hoping to offer further trainings on later this year. But one thing you might want to think about is, how is your debt organized? There are opportunities to potentially reorganize your debt. I think often for many small businesses, all debt is stressful, but many companies of all sizes operate all of the time with debt. And so it's a question of, do you have good debt that you can manage that has reasonable fees? Or do you have bad debt that is strangling your business and making it hard for you to stabilize or grow? And so if you need to reorganize your debt, again, this is a great place to be talking with a financial services provider, but there may be different ways to go about it. You may be able to renegotiate with the people that you owe money to for different terms, or thinking about what the cycle is for how that goes, how you pay that back. And there is also a small business bankruptcy option, which does not require you to close your business. That small business bankruptcy option allows you to reorganize debt, and that came about, I think, in about 2019. And so if you are in a significant space with significant amounts of debt, you might want to explore that with a bankruptcy expert. Still thinking a little bit as we're closing out our 2021 books. So we're thinking about just getting all those records aligned. Where is that money? How are we thinking about that money? But there are other aspects that come into the assessment and the analysis you're going to do on the 2021 data as you have put it together. So one is to be thinking about all of the vendor relationships that you had. This is anyone that you were paying money to for something that supported your business. Prices are going up all over the place. And so the question you might want to consider, you know what your costs were in 2021. Are those costs going to go up in 2022? Can you negotiate new rates? Can you lock in your current rates? What are spaces where that's going to be important for you as you look at the money? Another piece, and a lot of small businesses skip this, is you're going to want to be thinking about any inventory that you have on hand. Inventory means different things for different businesses. If you are selling a product, that inventory might be products. If you offer a service, it may be things of value that you have that are related to offering that service. But it is things that your businesses own that are part of the sale that you are making when you make sales. And so you want to know fully, what do you have on hand? And then you want to know, what is the value of what you have on hand? The value of what you have on hand may not be what you paid for it. That value may be what you can get for it if you sold it now, and what you can get for it if you sell it through your business process. And as you look at all the inventory that you have left and you look at its value, you want to assess, how did all of those pieces of inventory do for your business in 2021? And you may need to reassess that you need to change what you're doing in terms of inventory. But you know what that value is, and then you know how you want to make changes in 2022. And another piece, and this is similar to the relationships, is you just want to review all of your costs for 2021. And there are two types of costs. There are variable costs and there are fixed costs. Variable costs are types of costs that the price can go up and down, or you might be spending different amounts depending on how much you're producing. So if you are making t-shirts, the amount of t-shirts that you get, it would be varied depending on where you're getting that from and how many t-shirts you're selling. However, there are also fixed costs. These don't change. That would be like the cost of your web hosting. That would be the cost of your cell phone bill, maybe your business licensing. But you still want to look at all of these and start to think about, how did they move in 2021, and do you expect them to change in 2022? Because one of the best ways to help your business stabilize and make money is to think about always, how can you cut costs? All of that preparation is going to help you prepare for tax. And one thing that you should do with that calendar as you're looking at it now is think about what your tax deadline is. Typically, the tax deadline is the same tax deadline as April 15th, but you may have different tax deadlines depending on your industry and depending on the way that you have made relationships with the Office of Tax Revenue, and for the IRS, you may pay quarterly. But you need to know what those deadlines are, and we highly recommend that you plan to have everything ready 2 weeks before, because not everything goes according to plan. Sometimes if you're working with a provider, they get delayed, and what you don't want is to be late. And so if you have prepared so that you are done 2 weeks early, that gives you a lot of wiggle room. So I put those dates on the calendar right now if you're able to. Now, we want to say a little bit about tax preparation. There are so many different ways that you can treat your business for taxes that it is a place where you need to work with a qualified tax professional. That might be a tax attorney or a tax accountant. We do not offer a lot of tax advice because we want you to get the best advice from someone who's a deep professional in this area. But if you are a sole proprietor, which means you haven't created a corporation, and you're going to be filing your business taxes as part of your personal taxes, if you are a DC resident and you earn less than $57,000 a year in total with your business, then you should be able to qualify for pro bono tax assistance. There are going to be other types of pro bono tax assistance. We've listed one here. We will be sending these slides out, and we can help you find others. But if you are a sole proprietor earning less than $57,000, you might be able to get assistance with those taxes. There's another piece as you look at all of your financial documents, and this is really important for anyone who is an employer, and we've heard of a lot of people who have had challenges in this space. Particularly if you are working with a payroll provider, if someone else is managing your payroll, paying your unemployment, and doing other pieces of that to pay your staff, sometimes things can become misaligned. This is a very good time to check and make sure everything looks like it's running properly. We've heard from too many small businesses that their payroll provider was failing to pay their unemployment taxes, and that can be fines, fees, and those actual taxes that you have to pay. But the other things that can happen in payroll is you need to look at what it is that you have committed to your employees that you are paying them, and is that actually what's coming through as you're paying them. So take a close look and do an assessment to make sure that those pieces are right. Even if you're paying a provider to do it, they can be making mistakes, and you'll pay the cost for that. And we're going to talk about one tool, and it's often not considered as a tool, but one tool that might help you catch a lot of these issues and resolve issues before they happen. We're going to talk a little bit about the Clean Hands document that is available from the Office of Tax and Revenue. Clean Hands is a status, and you can check in with the Office of Tax and Revenue at any time to see if your business is considered to have clean hands. So the Office of Tax and Revenue database will go through every place you're registered in district government and see if you owe a fine or a fee or taxes. And so it's great to use that as a way to see if someone believes that you owe that fee, but then you then look at it and resolve that issue either by paying it or by correcting it. And so one of the things you should be familiar with, and you should have had to sign up here when you created your business in DC, is your Clean Hands. The Clean Hands document is part of mytax.dc.gov. You have a login that you'll be able to log into, but you'll see that the Clean Hands piece is second row down. You can request a certificate of clean hands. This status can change at any time that any part of district government that thinks that you owe them money thinks that happens. So we highly recommend that you actually run this every 90 days or more often to see if you are seeing any issues that arise. Some of the most common places that issues arise is if you have your tax set up with the Office of Tax and Revenue to report quarterly and then didn't earn anything and didn't report. They don't know that, and so then they say you owe taxes. That also is usually an early warning system if something is going wrong with paying your unemployment tax. And so it can be a great place to check and say, does someone think I have an issue, so that you can quickly resolve it. If you don't have clean hands, you will not be able to get a government contract or a government grant. And so within that, if you do see an issue on your clean hands document, if it comes back and says you do not have clean hands, so if you owe the debt and that is correct, if you can't afford that debt, you may be able to reach out to that agency to ask about a payment plan so that you can resolve it. If you leave a debt sitting, it can sometimes increase, so then it becomes a larger problem. If you believe what is on your clean hands document is an error, then you can reach out to the agency of record and see if you can have that corrected, which might take some time. But it's good to work through those as soon as those arise. The other thing that has been happening a lot is there may be additional forms that you are required to file. So with your clean hands document, you may see that you need to have additional files. There's been a lot about personal property tax forms that people are required. But you also may find out that your reporting isn't set up correctly. We know of at least some businesses that have set up incorrectly an OTR, and then OTR was charging them a vendor fee, even though they were not a vendor. And so when you start to work through this, you may see that there's an alignment issue and that you need to have that corrected so that they're requesting the right documents from you and not charging you money that you shouldn't owe. So getting in contact with the Office of Tax Revenue, they're often busy. They're often busier during this time, but I do want to really highlight on their main website, there are a lot of resources for business. And I've just pulled the drop-down menu so that you can see it. I'm not going to go through what all of these are here, but the Office of Tax and Revenue has a lot of information. Some of it includes even sort of support at that federal level. You see the IRS identification number, the IRS Tax Center for Small Business, and common errors of business taxpayers. There's some really great information on here that you might want to look through. In addition, if you need to reach out to the Office of Tax and Revenue, you are able to call. The phone number is here. And you are also able, when DC government is open, to walk in. I don't know if they are currently open right now with the current public health space, but you can always check. Sometimes it is easier to go into their service center, and they have over 13 people there to support you when you walk in. There's another space if you're trying to work with OTR or trying to work through something and you're not getting it resolved and you believe that what is set up is not correct. There is an Office of the Taxpayer Advocate that was formed a few years ago. They have a full website. They can inform you of what your Bill of Rights is as a taxpayer. They can help, they're an ombudsman, and so they may be able to help work through other issues. So know that if you're getting stuck at the OTR space, this may be a resource to help you. You want to get those issues resolved because they just grow over time if you don't. So we covered a little bit on closing out your books, and we covered a bit on clean hands and taxes. There's always more to learn on those, and there's a lot more for you to do. But some of these practices that we're talking about now, checking in on these things, closing out your books, they help you avoid harm, and they're also going to help you access funding. So many of these pieces set up, whether it's having your books in order or having your taxes in order, you could be denied funding from loans to grants or contracts if these things are not in order. So if you heard a lot of discussion, particularly when many of the first grants were coming out during the pandemic, a lot of people talked about having your paperwork in order or your books in order. Having your books in order is part of that paperwork. We'll get into other paperwork that's necessary, but being able to be on top of this helps you be available, helps you receive other support and services. We really do, however, recommend that if you can afford it, and it can be very affordable, that you consider working with a financial service provider. This includes a bookkeeper, an accountant, or a tax professional. These folks have certifications and a lot of training in this, and they work with a lot of other small businesses directly on these issues. And so they're going to know different ways for you to think about and approach challenges. And if you can get the challenges taken care of, then you can really think about how do you strategize to move forward. And so get everything taken care of so that you can do the fun work of strategizing. How am I going to make my business grow? How am I going to take my business forward? So once you have done your projection, once you have done your closeout for 2021, you have a sense of how you're thinking about all of the money that the business had or owes. You're then going to think about what is 2022 going to look like. And you want to do what something is called projections. A projection is an educated guess. You're going to take what you already know and you're going to say, what do I think is going to change and how do I think this business is going to make money this year? And so all of those documents, your balance sheet, your profit and loss statement, and your cash flow, you're going to set up a projection that says, I'm guessing that this is what this is going to look like in 2022. And that process helps you think about changes you might want to make or problems that you think are going to happen that you want to create solutions for. Your projections are never going to be completely accurate because you're guessing the future, but you want as educated a guess as possible. And then based on those projections, based on those projections, you need to determine, do you need to make big or small changes going forward? It's very unlikely for any business that 2021 is going to be exactly like 2022. But what's going to be different and how it's going to be different, it will be different for every business. And so one of the things to think about is the financial needs that you have for your business to be stable and for it to grow, all of that is going to drive the strategy of everything else that you do. And if your business is currently in debt, it's maybe how to get out of debt or get to good debt, or maybe it's how does your business grow, or how do you get those new goals of things that you would like to do this year. One of the things to think about if your business needs to make a larger pivot, and I know we've heard the term pivot a lot in the last few years, but it's still something that people are doing a lot of, or even if you need to close, these are places to seek help. This is where business development can help you think through things, be aware of resources. And if you do decide to close a business, I want to say two things about that. One, it is not a personal failure if your business is struggling during the pandemic. This is happening to everyone. And so it's about a space of how can you close the business in the best way possible for you? Can you make money? Can you make sure you don't owe fines and fees? How can you close that up well so that you can close that chapter and think about the next thing that you're going to do? And the biggest thing to think about as you think about what you need to do in your business next year, and it might be growing and it might be closing, is to think about how you're taking care of you and your people. And then everything else with the business, you can always change your strategy or do different things to serve that. So once again, just to remind you, we'll talk a little bit about some resources at DSLBD at the end, but if you are looking to access additional capital in this year, your books are going to need to be in order. And so if you need support on that, please let us know. We have some additional trainings. We can talk through it, and then we can talk through the types of service providers that you might be looking for. Okay. We're going to start jumping into a different topic, which is also very important to getting your business fully set up, which is a regulatory checkup. There are a number of things regulatorily that you need to do for your business to stay up to date on the basics. And we'll cover some common things that are a little bit less basic, but touch a lot of businesses. So we're going to start with DCRA, which is the central agency for most of the basic business regulation. And we're going to talk about corporate filings and renewals. That is different from business licensing. The corporate filings is creating your LLC. The business license is the local law that allows you to operate that business. And then we'll say just a little bit about professional licensing renewals as well. But a big thing that you want to put on your calendar right now are the key and important dates that you need for renewals on these pieces. So there are a few different DCRA systems, all of which are accessible through Access DC, and we'll share that link that you're going to want to be looking at. Most businesses are going to want to look at Corp Online, Scout, and Occupational and Professional Licensing Renewals is only for those who have a professional license. But let's talk about what these systems are. If you go to accessdc.dcra.dc.gov, down here, and we'll share it with you, you will be able to see all of these different systems within DCRA. And some of them can be very useful to you. We're going to walk through each one of them. Scout lets you look up data on any business license and a number of other pieces of information. My DC Business Center is where you could do your renewal. Corp for your business license. Corp Online is where you would update your corporate filings. And the Occupational Professional Licensing Reform Form, Renewal Form is where you would update those records. So for Access DC, you should have a login. If you forget your login, they can help you get that login back because you should have a login that is already attached to your records. So for Corp Online, and this is something we've been trying to make sure we tell as many people as possible every year. Every single year, thousands of DC businesses fail to meet the April 1st corporate filing dates. And every year those businesses face they face a fine. And then if they don't update it, usually by the end of the summer, then their corporation is revoked. And so this can mean hundreds of dollars. It can also mean if your business, if your corporation is no longer active, it could mess with your insurance. It could mess with other legal matters because then essentially your entity no longer exists. And this can be confusing because it's usually a 2-year renewal period, but you need to know when your biennial report is due. And it doesn't have to be a long report, but you have to get it in on time. I think typically after the first year that you create your corporation, your biennial report is due the next year. And the year after that is when you renew the corporation. But we're going to suggest that you check this every year. And this is going to attach if you've got a trade name as well, which is optional. A trade name is an additional name for your business that you use in business and wanted to legally hold. In Corp Online, and regarding your corporate renewal, we recommend every single business put March 15th on your calendar every year, just to check in and see if your corporate records are up to date and whether or not renewals are due. And the reason we suggest this every year is because it's every 2 years, it's easy to skip a year. A lot of people are like, oh, I must have done that last year, and then they don't see it and they don't check. And so given how much trouble this creates for a lot of businesses, March 15th, check in on Corp Online, see what is due that year so that you don't owe those hundreds of dollars or have those other issues. So we're going to switch over to business licensing. So not every business in the district requires a basic business license through DCRA, but most do. You probably already know if you have a basic business license. Some exceptions apply, like some professional licensing, like childcare centers, doctors, and lawyers. So if your professional license exempts you from the basic business license, you should still be doing a similar check-in on where your professional license is and know those renewal dates. Everyone's renewal date for your business license will actually be a different date because it's based on when you got your first license. So it's not that same time. And so one of the things that had happened during the pandemic is they had, for a while, extended licenses so that people didn't have to renew. That has ended, so you need to make sure that your license is active. And then from that, you need to make sure that you know when your license comes up for renewal. One important piece, if your business moved location, you will have to get a new business license. Business licenses are attached to the location address. That's what they're licensing, that business can operate in that location. It's why it connects to certificate of occupancy. It's why it connects to or your home occupancy permit. So if you need a new license, that will be a completely new fee. You have to do a new application. You may need to close the other license down. But if you did not move, make sure you keep an eye on your renewal date and definitely plan to start that renewal process earlier, at least 2 weeks in advance, maybe earlier than that, in case you get caught up with a requirement so that you don't have a space in which your business is unlicensed. So you may be able to renew online unless there's additional requirements for your business, but you will have to pay a new fee when you renew. Typically, business licenses are 2 years. There are some that you may have set for 4 years, so you just want to make sure that you always keep that date on your calendar. If you ever want to check the status of your basic business license, you can do that in the Scout system when you log into DCRA under Access DC, and you can search by your business license number, you can search by your address, or you can search by your business name, and you can find that, and it will tell you is your business active, and it will tell you when the date is that it needs to be renewed. If you need to renew that license, then you then go back through that My DC Business Center portal, which is also available in Access DC. So once again, Scout is how you look things up. That's the first one. My Business DC Center. My DC Business Center is where you would renew your business license. Corp Online is where you would check and update and register and file your corporation. And let's get to this occupational and professional licensing renewal form. So for several of the occupational licenses that are not health related are at DCRA. That includes the list here: accountancy, architecture, industrial trade, security. If you need to keep those up to date, you can do that through the portal here. If you have a professional license with the Department of Health or another licensing body, you should do a similar check with them and see what their process is. If you need support working with DCRA on your corporation or your license, there is a Small Business Resource Center. It's an excellent team that can help walk you through different pieces, answer questions. They offer one-on-one technical assistance all of the time. They also offer a number of different classes. And I always tell Tamika, whose name is on here, that we send people to her all the time. Tamika is wonderful. So if you call that number, you're going to get Tamika's desk. Reach out to her, let her know what the issue is, and she'll tell you the best way to sign up for support, or she might be able to help you right there on the phone. So we're going to switch away from DCRA, and we're going to talk about some other forms of regulatory compliance. We're going to start moving a little faster because I know that we have a lot of content that we're covering in a short amount of time. Different other regulatory compliance may be very different depending on your business type. So there's a lot that we're not going to cover, but some of the things that we will. And really, if your business affects health, safety, or the environment, there's likely regulations. If you are an employer, there are definitely regulations. And for many businesses, you may have insurance requirements. Insurance is always recommended, but for some things, there may be specific insurance requirements. So since we can't cover everything, we're gonna hit some of the big ones. But one of the things to note, and if this is something that is concerning for you and you want to reach out and talk about it a little bit more, if you are operating a business in the district, you are responsible for knowing about the regulations for your industry. And so if you feel like you aren't sure, have questions, want to connect, we may not know the answers, but we will work to try to get you connected with someone who does, if you aren't sure if you know all the regulations that apply to your business. All right, we're going to keep going a little faster. All right, some of the things that we're going to touch on briefly: employment and labor laws, environmental laws, and a little bit on health safety for some of the things that are happening right now. But let's first talk about employment. And a really big one is things that are governed through the Department of Employment Services Wage and Hour Division. This both includes your unemployment payment. So you want to make sure that you're properly registered, reporting, and paying your unemployment insurance. That's one of those things that you check when you check your payroll provider, but you really want to make sure. Some people have a misalignment and then they miss a lot of money paid to DOES, and it's very hard to correct that later because it was more money than they were expecting. But another really important and moving space is whether or not you are following wage laws, particularly updates in the minimum wage, but there are other wage laws that Wage and Hour oversees. If you are failing to pay people either the minimum wage, or if you are failing, if you are not paying people for all of the hours that they're working, you could face wage theft laws, and you could face wage theft action by the Attorney General or other spaces. So you want to make sure that you're in full compliance. And then we're also just going to say a little bit, the Department of Employment Services also has a lot of workforce support. So we're just going to sprinkle a little bit that in, some of the benefits that you can get as well as the regulatory compliance. But I think one just important piece for everyone to be keeping an eye on, the district's minimum wage does continue to rise. And so both the minimum wage and the living wage on July 1st will be $16.10. And so this is something, as you look at your financial planning for this coming year, if you are an employer, you want to make sure that you've accounted for that rise. If you want to reach out to the Wage and Hour Division, or if you want to look at more issues about compliance, they have the website is listed here at the bottom. All the contact information is here, and you can go into their service center. There's another division, and I think that this can be really useful as you're thinking about workforce, whether you're looking to recruit, whether you're looking for on-the-job training, looking to retain. DOES has an Office of Talent and Client Services, and they work with businesses of all sizes to help make sure that dollars that are coming from the Federal Department of Labor are going to support DC's workforce. Tons of initiatives across the district. And so if you want to reach out and see what are ways in which you can support your employees, it's a great time to check in and think about what those things might be. We're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about the environment. There's a fairly large agency. If you haven't heard about it before, it is the Department of Energy and the Environment, and they are doing so much to support DC sustainability in a lot of different ways. Some of the things that might affect a lot of businesses, you've probably heard of many of these, but you might not have heard of all of these. There is a plastic bag tax in DC. I think implementation of that is pretty widespread. There is a foam ban in DC. There's a plastic straw ban. One thing, and we'll have an information session on this coming up in February, there's a new electric leaf blower ban. But one thing that's helpful about that is there are also, for the electric leaf blowers, it's a gas leaf blower ban. Electric leaf blowers are required, but there are rebates to help people purchase additional ones if you need to make that change. There's also a huge process going on that every building over 25,000 square feet must do energy benchmarking. There are a lot of laws on how you properly dispose of waste. But again, there's also benefits. And so there are rebate programs. There are ways for you to work with DOEE in order to get a lower energy cost by buying it together. There's green financing, and there's a lot of work under Sustainable DC 2.0, which is a big plan about how the district is approaching sustainability. So I think one thing to recognize on this is that DC in many ways is leading on energy efficiency and other measures. So there is a lot to keep up on. We have put down here, and we'll have on the next slide, some of the business resources that are available from DOEE. And we have a direct contact. Her name is Mary Lynn Wilhare, who will meet with any DC business and talk about any green topic. She's actually listed under RTA contact listing. So if you're trying to reach out to us to just have a conversation, you can also just schedule with Mary Lynn. And she'll do some prep on whatever your question is and see if she can get an answer, whether it's something that DOE does directly or if it's generally about green or sustainable business practices. She is part of the Urban and Sustainability Administration at DOE. I'm going to say just a little bit about some of the requirements that are coming up related to vaccines. This information has been covered very deeply by the Department of Health, by the mayor, and by the deputy mayor's office. So we're just going to highlight it briefly and show you where you can go find more information. A lot of the emerging health guidance, particularly around COVID-19, is on the coronavirus.dc.gov website. That's what's here. You can go back and see. If you want to see and go to this slide, you can see all the mayor's orders that have been coming out in order, particularly if you need to reference back. Sometimes you might need to reference back to what those are. And one important piece, hopefully if this applies to your business, you've already heard about it. If not, let us know. We'll try to make sure you get all of the guidance. But just as it says on this slide, starting this Saturday at 6 a.m., establishments that are listed on the next slide will be required to verify that patrons ages 12 and older have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. So there was a teletown hall on this. There's a lot of information coming out from DOH. And so if you need additional information, you can both go to that webpage, but also if you reach out to us, we will look to get you connected to who can help answer additional questions that you might have. And so those are just a few pieces of regulatory compliance. There may be more. Your business might have others. Some of the really big sort of specialty areas. If you are in food and beverage, you are probably very aware of the Alcohol Beverage and Regulatory Association, ABRA. They have a lot of regulations you need to keep up with. If you are in childcare or child development, the Office of the State Superintendent of Education. If you are doing anything with public space, that would be the Department of Transportation. That includes streeteries. If you have a food business, obviously you're doing a lot with the Department of Health. There's more past that. So we couldn't cover everything, but just starting to think about, are there changes? Are there important things that you need to check in on for your business or certifications that you need to update? And one thing I'll mention, we're not going to talk about this a lot, but this is from our agency. If you are a certified business enterprise, that means that you are working with our agency to get preference points for DC government contracts. You want to know what your renewal date is, and that should be available to you in your records when you sign in. A few things that you can look at doing. You can update your NIGP codes. If this is gibberish because you're not a CBE, NIGP code means it's a code that people put together. They use to say, this is the industry that my business can do work in. And so updating your NIGP codes helps folks who are looking for CBEs to do contracts or subcontracts find you. So you want to review that code list and see if you need to update them. And then there's an important piece, and it's listed on the website here. If you have a material change to your business, which often means if you have changed location, if you've changed ownership, anything that's really big that might affect your CBE certification, you need to report that right away. And that information is available again on this page here. We're going to do a related note, which is not quite a regulation, but in some instances it is. We're going to talk a little bit about insurance. There's a space where one could talk a lot about insurance, but we want to just mention a few pieces. So in some instances, district government requires insurance if you're working with us in different ways. But we also, many insurance types are helpful. And so for your insurance, if you are covered, one thing to make sure that you know, and as you're re-reviewing your insurance is, do you know how to make a claim? If you have insurance and you can make a claim, it is beneficial to your business. And so knowing that process will be helpful. And looking back and saying, are there any claims that I should have made from 2021? So when you are finding insurance or renewing your insurance, we recommend that you work with a broker. A broker is different than the provider. The broker is there, much like in real estate, to help you find the best plans for you. And they are typically paid for by the providers. But find a broker that understands your industry, that you get good recommendations, that people have liked working with them, and that you feel like they're looking for a good price for you. One of the things that can be good about having a good relationship with a broker is sometimes you need to add additional insurance for different reasons. And so if you need to add on insurance, you want to know what that cost and what that process is going to look like. maybe you're not going to get that additional insurance today, but you might need it for contracts, for grants, or for other things that are coming forward. So there is an office in DC that does deal with insurance for certain purposes, and that is the Office of Risk Management. And so places where this may affect you as a DC business in terms of requirements, if you are doing a contract with district government, you will be required to have often several types of insurance. And so as you start to explore contracting, you want to get a better sense of what that might be for your type of business and the things you'd be operating. Insurance is also typically required for DC government grants. So if you are looking for a direct-to-business grant, you're definitely going to need general liability insurance. If you have employees, it is required by law that you would have workman's comp. If you have vehicles, that would be required, but you know you will need at least general liability. There are some permits that you would get in the district, and many of these are public space permits. So for streeteries and other things like that, where you're required to have insurance. If you're an employer, once again, you must have workman's comp. And then some business types may include other insurance requirements. Very specifically for those permits, there are insurance requirements, particularly that were listed for sidewalk cafes, streeteries, parklets, and public space rentals, particularly for retail and food and beverage businesses. If you want to see a little bit more about the insurance section, and I think reaching out to them might be even more helpful, but this is the page that covers some of that basic information about requirements for grantees, contractors, and permittees. So you can see what's listed there. You can go back and look at what's in the regulations. But if you need to reach out to the Office of Risk Management and ask questions, the head of the insurance division is Jane Waters. They've listed her email address or the team email address. If you want a phone number, I'd suggest going to their main page and calling their main desk. So one of the things that you want to make sure that you do with your insurance, whether it's required or something that you chose to get because you want to protect your business, is make sure you know when you need to renew your insurance. It is very easy to let that lapse. And so a date that should go on your calendar is, when does your insurance need to renew? Make sure you have the payment that you need to renew it, and make sure the process is all in place. And then you want to make sure that you always have your certificate on file. When you get your insurance, you're going to get policy declarations and you're going to get a certificate. The certificate says, yes, I have insurance. The policy describes everything that's in it. That certificate should give you the dates and tell you what's covered, and you always want to make sure that you have that on hand. That is often required, and it's often useful when you need to make a claim. All right, we're going to go just a little bit faster because I know we are continuing to run out of time. We have a lot of things we're covering. If you have questions, definitely please keep putting those into the chat. Also, please feel free to reach out to us at inno.ed@dc.gov, and you can schedule a phone call with us or ask us quick questions. We'll make sure that we help you get to that information that you're looking for. As you think about making sure that your business has all of the foundation that it needs, that you've set your books in order, that your regulatory setup is there, that you've checked in on anything that you need to renew. Another really important piece of your business is updating your marketing strategy. And so you should have a marketing plan that you've put together in your business plan. If you haven't before, no time like the present to create a marketing plan. There are a lot of different ways to create a marketing plan, but there are some key concepts that we're going to talk about in evaluating and refreshing. I can't speak, I apologize. Refreshing your reflections. But this is something you should be updating and evaluating regularly based on what you've seen happen in the market and what you predict is going to happen in the market. If you don't have time to do this right now because you have all this regulatory and tax and bookkeeping things to do, that's okay. But I highly suggest that you put a time on your calendar for this year for when you think you are going to be able to do your marketing plan refresh. And the financial analysis that you do in closing your books is really going to help you think about, how much money do I need to put towards marketing? Where is that marketing dollar going to be targeted? What is it that I need to achieve with my marketing so that I can achieve sales? And so some of those reflections that you really need to refresh, and this isn't so much the plan as the underlying assumptions that you're taking into the plan. But if you had to answer, who are your customers? Do you know who your customers truly are? Are they the same people and the same target market that you had when you started your business, when you did your business plan? This often shifts over time for different reasons. You might have just reached a new segment. There might be that some customers have dropped off, but other people have gotten excited about your business. You might have changed what your business sells or does or where it's located. Do you know who your customers are, and do you need to update your concept of that? And within that, How much do you know about what your customers need and want right now? You know, where are they going to spend their dollar? What are the things that are going to interest them? You want to stay fresh on where they are, what they're thinking about, what they need. If you need to find new customers, so do you have enough? You know, do you have a good customer base? Is it healthy? You'd like to add some, but it's okay because you're in a good space. And you know, if you are in a good space, maybe what you need to do rather than finding new customers is deepen the customer loyalty of the business, of the people who are buying from you right now. For the people who are buying from you right now, will they do reviews for you? Are they referring you to other people? Are they going to keep coming back? Are they buying the same product? Do they want new products? These are all big picture reflections that you should be thinking about when you think about approaching your customers. Another piece is, does your target customer know where to find you? Even if they knew where to find you before, many businesses have started selling in different ways. You know, they've started selling online in different ways. They started doing delivery in different ways. Some people have changing hours due to things that are happening with the pandemic. Does your customer know where to find you? Do they need a reminder on where to find you? And if they do they know what they can buy and how they can buy it? If these things have changed, then you really need to make sure that they know it. And even if they haven't, you might need to remind them because so many other businesses have changed. And the best way to find out the answer to many of these questions is to ask your customers. Customer feedback is one of the best things that you can do in order to build your marketing plan and continue to strategize for your business. And how you ask your customers might be very different on who your business is and who your customers are. It might be literally calling a few people on the phone. It might be setting up events. It might be getting a feedback form. It might be a survey. It might be a social media series. There are a lot of different ways that you might ask for that feedback. So think about, how are you currently getting feedback? How else can you get feedback, and what are you getting feedback on? That will help you think about how you want to develop your marketing strategy further in 2022. And so your analysis, as I said before, of your books from before and your financial projections for what you're going to do with your money this year is going to inform that marketing plan. And you might learn you had a seasonal product and didn't realize it. Maybe you had really popular products and you need to say, are those products or services going to stay popular? Maybe there were particular sales channels, maybe there were particular markets or places where you performed better. What does all of that mean? That analysis of how your sales went and how your costs went, what does that mean for how you're going to market and where you want to strengthen your marketing this year? All right, we're going to keep going pretty quickly. We've talked about a lot of things. I'm just going to cover some quick business development resources. There are so many of them, it can be hard to navigate them, but there's a lot of information and advice that is free. And one of the things that we highly recommend, whether it is us, whether it is one of the many other great organizations in the district, is that you sign up for at least one free technical assistance organization. You get on their mailing list, you go in and do some meetings with them that are one-on-one to think about your business. And the reason that can be so helpful is there's more information. We talked about information overload than you'll probably be able to pull in. And so if you are working with a service provider in this way, they can help highlight to you important new information about business development, whether it's grants, loans, regulation, opportunities. They can help you stay on track with some of that key information. One way to find many of these different organizations. We love it when you reach out to us, but we also want you to reach out to these partners. If you have never signed into the DC Business Toolkit, this is something that Camille runs within our agency, and it's sort of like a big wiki. So it's a website that has a lot of our partners and other information, a ton of roadmaps. So you can think about, I want to do this or I want to find this resource. The toolkit can help start to point you there. And when you do the toolkit, if you become you can sign up and you'll actually create an account for yourself. And in that account, you can save specific resources. You can also sign up for email updates. So a very valuable email update that we want to share with everyone. And if you want help on this, definitely email us and we'll give you the instructions. We send out a funding alert. Funding is important. We send out information about grants, loans, other types of opportunities that may be important funding information for your business. And so you can sign up for it on this page in this way. If you need help with that, please reach out. Also going to highlight just a few key programs. There are many more, some that DSLBD does and some that our partners do. If you were not aware of it, this May we launched the DC Kiva Hub that is crowdfunded, no fee, no interest loans from $1,000 to $15,000. Those are some of the best loan terms we've ever seen. Camille provides direct support to anyone who wants to be an applicant on that. You could be any stage business, just starting or many years in business if you want to do DC Kiva Hub. Shannon, who is on the line, runs the free certification for the Made in DC program. We were able to offer our very first home-based maker grant, our market access grants this year for official Made in DC members. We also do a lot to help connect people to market opportunities and to grow that ecosystem. We made reference to the Certified Business Enterprise program that is also housed within DSLBD. And so if you are thinking about selling services to the government or products, or if you would like to subcontract to prime contractors, that free certification gives you preference points and additional support. And if you are in contracting, we have a really great organization housed within DSLBD called the DC Procurement Technical Assistance Center. They do training and one-on-one counseling for anyone doing contracting at the state, federal, and local level from DC. Just going to highlight a couple of these partners real quick. These are some of the ones that we make referrals to most often, though there are so many more. Small Business Resource Center at DCRA to help you with those regulatory and licensing issues. The Small Business Development Center at Howard University. They've been there for decades. They are funded out of the Small Business Administration. They do training and additional one-on-one technical assistance, very deep technical assistance. There's also the Women's Business Center, not listed here, that does very similar support. If you need legal advice, the DC Bar Pro Bono Law Center has always been an amazing resource, and they've been incredibly important to small businesses facing commercial leasing issues during this time. You can get brief legal advice, speak with an attorney to look through a topic, whether it's how to create your corporation, how to look at a contract that you're doing, or how to get out of a contract that you're in. They can provide that brief legal advice. They offer additional trainings, and they might be able to help connect you with additional pro bono. And then one of the things on funding that a lot of people don't know about, but if you are taking a loan or getting equity investment, you might be able to getting matching capital dollars from the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking under DC BizCap. If that's of interest, let us know and we can help connect you there. So if you want to stay updated with things like this and things that are similar, send any question to us at Inno.ED at dc.gov. You can also schedule a free 30-minute technical assistance call with any of our team members on any topic. We all have different specialties, but for many of the basic things, everything that I covered today, everyone else on our team could easily cover, and many other topics. And so you can book that call at any time at that link. And then we have the lunch and learns, but we also do a lot of other events as well. And so you can check out our Eventbrite to see our full list of everything that's coming up. I want to make sure I don't forget to mention this really great resource that came through from the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development. The obviouslydc.com website includes a list of the 2022 business funding opportunities. There are more grants than ever available for for-profits in the district. We don't know how long it will last, but we know they are here now. So this is just the first one, but if you go to that page, you can scroll through and see so many of those other opportunities so that if you are thinking about pursuing grants for your business, that you will be able to have some sense of when some of those are coming out, and who is putting those out. So it's hard to find all of this information. There's so many different things that can be supportive or that is a regulation or a requirement. But if you become a client with at least one organization, they can help you get into the information flow. So highly recommend that you set a goal once a month, once a quarter, seeing what those resources are and what can help you. One of the things that happens really often, going back to that briefly, is we will issue a grant or we'll issue something else. We've been reaching out forever. The grant will close and people will be like, I didn't hear about it. There's so much going on that you might not hear about that you want to get in that information flow. All right, we're going to do this super fast. Partnerships and goals. All of this planning, all of this preparation, this checkup, you want to think about where are you headed in 2022 in a big picture way. And this question in the small print that I have in the bottom, I think is the key fundamental piece here. Not what do you have to do, but what serves you in this space. What helps your business, what helps you, what makes what you want to get done go forward. So what served you in 2021 might not serve you in 2022, and that's okay. Everything is moving, you're changing, the business is changing. This is a great time to reevaluate what you were doing and to either continue to do it or to do something different. So renew or reset. And it's sort of a moving statement at the bottom. Goals determine your needs, and your needs determine your goals. It's a piece that keeps moving together. Contractual relationships, if you have them. And I'm just going to cover the top, and you can read this other stuff in the slide deck if you'd like to. But you should know what contracts did you have in 2021. This can include service agreements. Do you know what they all were? Do you want to continue them? Do they already continue? Do you want to end them? Do you want to renew them? Do you want to change anything about what you have about those existing contracts? And again, that can be a service relationship, like even where you get your cell phone. And then you want to analyze the outcomes of those contracts. What was good and what was bad? You know, that helps you think about, can you change things? Or if you can't change it, how do you mitigate the harm of things that were not good? You also have a ton of non-contractual relationships for your business. You haven't signed something, there isn't money exchanged, but you partner, you work with other people, and you want to look at those people who are non-contractual relationships and say, who is really important? Who is important to me? And, you know, if something about that relationship changed, would it change my business significantly? Within that, you want to say, are they happy and are you happy? Relationships require maintenance and they require communication. So you want to make sure that's happening. And then you want to say, is somebody missing? Are there relationships I don't have that I want to have? How do I cultivate that? And just remember that relationships go two ways. It doesn't matter, you know, sort of what the pieces are being exchanged in the relationship. If the terms of the relationship are uneven, they often break. So you have to say, is this relationship contractual or not, serving both parties? And if it's not, then you need to think about what needs to change in it. So all of this helps you think about setting your overall goals. And you might set them now, you might set them quarterly, you might have a retreat this year where you decide to set those goals, but you should make specific time for setting those big picture goals, evaluating them. You need to make sure that you have the information that you need to have so you can set those goals. Some of it's financial, some of it's marketing, some of it is checking in with yourself. You can evaluate your previous goals too, whether you formally set those goals down or you just told yourself those goals in your head. Did you meet those goals? Did you change and it was good? Could you just not reach it? Not meeting a goal isn't necessarily a failure, particularly if you're happy with what the outcomes were that were there. But evaluating whether or not you reached those previous goals will help you think about what goals you're setting, and that will help your business grow. And this is the last point, and I know we're at time, but just remember that only you can define what success means for your business. A lot of people want to tell you whether or not you're being successful. You know why you're doing this business. You know what you can afford and what you can't afford. And so success can be iterative. It can change. And so it becomes a question of what in your business serves you, what does not, and how can you take that forward? We are out of time. So I think I'm actually 2 minutes over, so I apologize about that. We're going to go ahead and stop the recording, but on this slide is just, once again, our email address. We didn't go over it, but these are some of the programs that the Inno.ED team runs directly. If you have questions about that, definitely reach out. Thank you, everybody, so much, and Happy New Year. And we can go ahead and stop the recording.